All right, well, let's move into the second speaker. We've got, did anybody not get a handout? Anyone not get a handout? We've got a few. There we go. Amanda's coming in right now. If you need a handout, if you would stick your hand up and grab one of those. Mike Sampley is going to speak next. Mike has been a licensed marriage and family therapist in Bakersfield, California for about 37 years. He has also served as an associate pastor at a church and a worship director as well. Mike has taught and trained in many different venues in the United States and internationally as well. And when I've introduced him before, and he says that the thing he's most proud of is that he gets to have me as a son-in-law. So, anyway, I tell at least one lie every time I introduce someone. But I have semi-seriously said when introducing him before that he has ruined my marriage. Because as a father, he put the bar so high up there, and I really mean that his daughter, Nicole, kind of expects, well, I'm sure all men are like this. And it's like, Mike, thanks for ruining my marriage. You were such a good dad. So anyway, marriage ruiner, the platform is yours.
Okay. You poor people. No, it's good to be here with you. I want to start today. I want this to be very practical, and one of the things I'd like to know who was here before when I did the marriage seminar. So quite a few. I'm going to review the style or the mode of communication model that I use mostly because it applies to parenting too. So I won't spend tons of time on it, but I'd like to just help you understand it. It's taken from transactional analysis. It's a theoretical approach to communication, but it's an adaptation of it as far as I'm concerned. In this model, this is person number one. You're either communicating or interacting like an adult, a parent, or a child. And these are not roles. These are styles or modes of interacting. So you're being adult, you're being parental, or you're being childish. And the other person is back at us in one of those ways, okay? So you can have interactions that are adult to adult, two people parenting one another, child to child, parent to child, adult to child, and adult to parent. Those are all of our options. There's a big difference between being adult and parental. When we're in this parental style of interacting, we take on or feel responsibility for the other person. It's my job to fix you, correct you, teach you, motivate you, change you, enlighten you, make sure you do this, not that, this way, not that way, now, not later. You know, you're taking on responsibility for the other person. In the adult style of interacting, we're responsible to others, which is very different. The handout is the last page on your handout. I have it very much in the back there. And I'd like to kind of just read it through and talk it through so you can understand kind of where I'm coming from. But if you look at the childish styles of interacting, and I will go back again. If you're husband and wife, you're interacting on one of these three levels: with your spouse, with your employees, with your friends, with your parents, and also with your children, okay? So some childish ways: being argumentative, being rebellious, pouting, withdrawing, being selfish, self-centered, threatening. You can be too compliant, just a good little person who not willing to confront anything, but they're much more compliant and don't have a voice. Being disrespectful, being stubborn, communicating hopelessness, someone who's lost or zones out in an interaction, exaggerates, uses absolute statements: you always, you never, every single time, not once, I've told you a million times, nonstop, constantly. Those words are huge, and they're a big pick and a fight method. So exaggerations are very dangerous. Being impatient, rude, having a spirit of complaining, entrapping someone, not letting them leave whenever they want to leave or escape, being violent, manipulative, tattling, Being reactionary, that's blowing your stack or losing your temper. Lying, being revengeful, holding grudges, blaming the other person that you're doing all this, ignoring the other person, hitting, kicking, scratching, biting, shoving, pushing, poking, breaking things, throwing things, shoving. Being envious, jealous, manipulating, swearing, throwing temper tantrums, running off to your addictions to medicate, being defensive, being disrespectful, being sneaky, impulsive, prideful, passive-aggressive, and the list goes on. So you may not have all of those in your interactions with your spouse or your kids or other places, but they're pretty common in all of our lives. Not all of them, but a lot of them when we're not on our game. In the parental style of interacting, there's the self-appointed teacher. I'm in the know and you need to know. There's the drill sergeant type or the militaristic approach, a very heavy-handed, heavy-fisted style of interacting and communicating. Hovering, people who hover, helicopter parents, people who hover over, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Why are you doing it that way? Don't do it that way, do it this way. You're gonna make a mistake. I don't want you to fail. I don't want you to burn the toast. I don't want you to whatever. I'm watching and you need to be careful. You know, that sort of a thing. That hovering will breed one of two things. You'll end up with someone who becomes dependent on you, where they're not able to learn from their mistakes at all. They've been prevented from making those mistakes. Sometimes they need to learn from their own mistakes so that it becomes something that they bank on. So they'll either become somebody who's dependent on you, or they become a rebel. You know, how in the heck do I get out from underneath this stupid helicopter? I'm sick of it. Have any of you ever been underneath a helicopter when you were raised? You know, it's tough. We don't like it. Most people don't like it. Some are just dependent, though. Okay, being overprotective, smothering, that's a bit synonymous. Being controlling, you can also be a permissive parent. That's someone who does not follow through. We'll talk about that in a bit more. Enabling, shaming, all of the parental styles of interacting are codependent issues because a codependent is someone who takes on or feels responsibility for another person. They take it on rather than letting that person have it. Being enabling, shaming, codependent, let's see, being judgmental, bossy, lecturing, and no matter how brilliant your lecture is, if you've not been hired to give a lecture, you're wasting your time. In fact, oftentimes I have a cross stitch in my office that says, never try to teach a pig to sing. It wastes your time and annoys the pig. And that is very true. So if you're going to give a lecture, no matter how brilliant it is, textbook it is, biblical it is, if you've not been hired to give that lecture, you're wasting your time and annoying the pig. So the secret is to get hired, if possible. I put worry on here. We'll talk about that one sec. And being demanding. The thing that's interesting about this, being parental, it's not usually motivated out of negativity or out of an unloving mode. It feels loving to do this. I have to do this because I'm afraid you're going to do this. I have to. I don't want you to fail. I don't want you to get hurt. I want to make sure you're successful. I want to make sure that you stay on track. I want to make sure you're following Jesus. I want to make sure, whatever the case might be, I love you and I'm afraid you're going to do something to mess up your life or mess up somebody else's life or mess up my life. So the motive, you can see, can be loving. In the adult style of interacting, we've got, I think whenever you're going to have an interaction with somebody or you want to have a sit down or you're just communicating, you want to try to state the goal. I would like to talk to you about how important it is to shut the lights off in a room but I don't want to come across like real bossy or anything. I just want to see if we can get on the same page about shutting the lights off so we don't have a huge electricity bill. In California, we have huge electricity bills if you don't have a solar system. It can be up $800, $900 in some homes. So I would like to see if we can't figure out a way to get our electricity bill down. I stated the goal. I'm not telling them what to do, right? So try to state the goal. Kids, I want to make certain that you have all your things picked up and put in the right place so that you don't forget. Can we sit down and talk about it? We're going to sit down and talk about it. State the goal and invite the person to the table. It's actually, I call it the adult table. Stating the goal is important. This is the way you do it. Being polite, being truthful, having hope, loving, being communicator. You don't clam up and withdraw. You listen, you hear what the other person has to say. Make requests, not demands. You're peaceful, honorable, secure, humble, generous, considerate, patient, respectful. You get hired for your wisdom and your advice and your lesson. They're forgiving, trusting, kind, good, responsible. They clarify what they mean and accept clarification as truth. Sometimes we come across in ways we don't intend to, correct? Sometimes we say things we don't really mean, correct? So we have to have opportunity or give opportunity and even teach your children to have the opportunity to clarify what they meant so that you problem solve what's meant, not what's misunderstood or misstated. So it's really helpful. I think clarification will save a lot of conflicts in families and a lot of time too. Protects, and by protects I mean it's not a parental thing. It's protecting the heart of the other person that you're dealing with. We need to protect the other person from these things in us. My wife gave me her heart 45 years ago, and my job is to protect her heart. I'm not supposed to make her feel sad. I'm not supposed to make her feel unloved. I'm not supposed to make her feel threatened. I'm not supposed to make her feel criticized or belittled. I'm supposed to protect her from my immaturity down here. Does that make sense? Supportive. Adults are supportive. They don't keep a record of wrongs. They're loyal. They're gentle. They persevere. They're faithful, joyful. They apologize for all of this. They hear what their other person has to say, and they're self-controlled. I call this the kindergarten sandbox. This is where we, a lot of us live a good chunk of the time. You've got somebody you're trying to tell, you need to do this because they're doing something childish here. So you need to XYZ, do something. This person says, quit telling me what to do. No, you need to do it. Shut up and quit telling me what to do. Then you jump down here with them and you squabble like this until somebody goes, I'm sorry, will you please forgive me? And then you can start all over again, and maybe it invites them up here, hopefully. But that's kind of the cycle. If you look at a husband and wife, there's typically one who's pretty strong parent when they're operating out of their weakness, and there's one that maybe needs to be told how to do it, or you feel like they need to. So you've got this kind of a parent-child thing going on, but everybody does all of these sometimes. We've just got to figure out how to get out of this child area and out of this parental area and get up here and figure out what this looks like. So I hope you notice in the top section there, the adult, I've taken most of that from 1 Corinthians 13. This is what love is. And this is what love is not, down here. It also, I've put the fruit of the Holy Spirit up here in the adult style of interacting. This is right in the heart of the New Testament. It's the way God wants us to interact and communicate with others. It's a genuine call to healthy communication right there. It's not just about marriages, it's about all of our interactions with others. Now at work, most of the time people are here in this adult style of interacting. We behave ourselves there. Why are you so good when you go to church and you come home and you talk to me like that? We have those sorts of conversations in families and churches a lot of times. It's because you're on your best behavior when you're not at home. When we go home, we have a tendency to hang our adult hat, and we move down here into this kindergarten sandbox style of interacting, which gets us into conflicts at home. Does any of this make sense? Okay. We want to do whatever you can to own this and come up here. So as we talk about parenting our kids, your job is to figure out how to communicate from up here and giving or handing out rules, expectations, consequences, having conversations even about pornography or screen time and all of that. You want to do it from up here. Make certain you have been hired and they're paying attention. And it's something that will definitely help. So that's where we're operating from. You can be, well, we'll get there. Let's take a look at my other sheet. Does anybody have any questions about this? Yeah.
So I love the scriptural paradigm. I'm thinking along the lines of God has male and female because I'm going to Sunday school lesson tomorrow morning. As you talk about like the adult style of communication, those were all like very neutral that apply uniquely. There's nothing uniquely masculine or feminine. Is there any particular like masculine or feminine energy?
You want to take your masculine role and communicate it from here, though. You don't communicate it from here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you're a boss or an employee. You have roles there as well. There are biblical guidelines and expectations that husbands have and responsibilities to carry out and to lead. But we do get held responsible, I think, as husbands. One day we get to answer for how we have loved our wife or led our wife and our children. But you still are communicating from here, not down here. Yes, ma'am.
I may have missed this, but is this the same type of communication with like you and, I doubt you and like a 3-year-old? Like, cause you're saying like you're going to do this.
Right. She's talking about, is this the same thing that would happen with dealing with children who don't understand things? I think when children are young and they don't have an ability to understand things, they can't figure out how to get their own drink of water and take care of their own hind end when they go to the bathroom. You know, that's kind of we have to do a lot of taking on responsibility for them there. I've also found that with even your parents, our parents, when they age and they become somebody who's a little more senile or they end up with Alzheimer's, we do have to take on responsibility for them. Sometimes to, put parameters around them or do whatever's necessary to protect them from danger. I've got people who have parents who are, they're having to take control of screens because people are trying to coax them into sending them all kinds of money. They find a lover online or something that wants money and they live in nowhere, we don't even know, probably Egypt or somewhere way off somewhere, and they send all their money to them. So you have to help protect those who are, I think, more simple, if not a better word. We have those kind of responsibilities in our lives from time to time. But with normal children, once they understand, then you want to do as much as you can to get out of taking on responsibility for them and up here. I will use an illustration of Nicole. When she was a little girl, we had a table that had glass top in it. So there was wood around it and there was glass and a very big lamp. And I had this little malachite egg. It's a rock egg that she was just banging on it. We tried not to move everything for our kids, but it frightened me. And because if she had have broken that glass, it could have severed her arm. So I was like, I was pretty frightened about that. And I used it as a moment. She was 2. So kids come out, it doesn't take them very long to become little sinners. And they just are. We all have a sin nature. But I'll just say that's where it is. I go, Nicole, it's important for you not to, don't touch. Hey, don't touch it. If you touch it, you'll get your hand smacked. She got as close as she possibly could, and she knew I was watching, and she walked away. Unfortunately, the other kids that I've had have had to have their hands slapped. But, we want to know what our boundary is. Where is the line? So they know it's not my job to make sure she doesn't touch it. It's her job. I want to make certain that it's their job they behave. It's not my job to make sure they behave. It's their job not to bite the other children in the Sunday school class. Not my job to make sure they don't, so I keep them away. You have to have some kind of rules and guidelines and expectations with clear consequences that they have. So it's their job. And as soon as they get into school, it's their job to make sure they have their homework done. It's my responsibility to check it, but it's their job to have it done. It's my job to make sure that it's their job to, whatever you want to hand them in terms of responsibility, what goes in their backpack, what goes in their lunchbox, whatever it is, you want to shift that responsibility to them as soon as you possibly can. And if they forget, then they suffer the consequences of it. Rather than you, oh my gosh, she forgot her lunch pail, and you run the lunchbox to school, and they know that if they don't have to remember, if you're going to continue to make sure that they have a lunch, but they need to eat. You feel that responsibility for them, and it hurts, but you want to do this and make certain that they can learn from that mistake. So they borrow at school. They borrow money and eat a hot lunch. If they buy a hot lunch, because a lot of times in California you can't miss a meal or something, we think. But if they miss a meal, if they end up borrowing and go ahead and borrow, then they have to pay for it. Figure out how to earn that money to pay for their meal. That makes sense? So they're suffering the consequence from it. I want them to learn that, make certain that the responsibility is for them, and I'm doing that, communicating it from here. I'm not doing this. And I certainly don't want to come down here and go, what in the world were you thinking? And yelling at them and hollering, why did you leave your lunch? I can't believe you left it. What in the world? I ought to paddle your behind. That's what I ought to do. And you're yelling and you're hollering. And they're just looking at you like you are crazy. Or they might be scared of you and they're feeling real intimidated. You want to stay out of the sandbox. Sweetheart, you forgot your lunch. That's too bad. Now you have to pay for the lunch that you borrowed. So we'll take care of that. You hand out your consequence that way. Okay, 2 types of misbehavior. There's rebellion, which is willful disobedience, and sometimes there is thoughtlessness or accidental disobedience. We're not going to take a look at all these passages, but you guys can look at those. You kind of want to discern whether or not it's willful disobedience in terms of what's going on with the kid. Make sure you're dealing with rebellion when you're handing out a consequence. But even thoughtless disobedience is an opportunity for a teaching moment. But again, you want to teach from here, not here. Teach from up here. Get hired. I want to talk to you about something. Let's sit down and talk. Would you like to learn about why it's important to do da 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 da? If they go, no, you don't have a student. Well, if you do, then let me know someday. We'll talk about it. But I think that's not a good choice, and let it sit. You want to kind of give them as much opportunity to make decisions. That gives them some autonomy, some individuality, which we're supposed to be encouraging. So understand and try to figure out what type of misbehavior you're dealing with. It's important for us as parents to work on our kids' attitude, their behavior, and character, the ABCs. Attitude, behavior, and their character is what we want to develop in them so that they grow up and be healthy, mature, loving, hopefully godly individuals. So we want to be able to recognize bad attitudes and try to help them communicate bad attitudes from here. And sometimes we do that through modeling. And we do that sometimes through guidance. Behavior, again, there's going to be behaviors that you want them to have. And if they're not falling in line with that, there needs to be a natural consequence, as well as sometimes one that you hand out. And you want your consequence to be you want to be wise with the way you hand out your consequence. You want to hand it out from here, not here or here. So if you're angry with your child for whatever they have done, you want to make certain that you're communicating your anger from here, not here or here. Or your frustration from here, not here or here. There are times, have you ever been so mad you just wanted to really yell and get all upset? And anybody? I think it's really important. One of the things that I tried to do a lot, I wish I had done it a lot more often, but if I'm that mad where I am furious, it's a danger zone, because the madder I am, the more likely I'm going to be down here in the way I communicate and interact. I want to communicate it from here. So sometimes, I'm really so angry right now that you need just to go sit on your bed. I need to calm down and figure out what your consequence is going to be before I hand out a consequence. So you calm down, you'll be more powerful. If you communicate from down here, you're the problem. That's the way they're going to look at it. It's either, I'm moving out when I'm 18 and you're never going to see your grandchildren. That may be what they're thinking. Or you don't love me and you don't care about me and you wish you had other children. They'll just go into this fit where they're a victim. You want to make certain that you don't take them off the hook by being down here. And that's what happens. You want them looking at their behavior, not yours. And that's a goal of all discipline. Make certain that they're looking at their behavior, not your behavior. You want them focusing on, what did I do wrong? Why did I do it? I throw out 4 questions for folks a lot. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What are the potential outcomes? And is it worth it? And those 4 questions you want to teach your kids over and over and over again. They're really good for you too. I'm really mad that my wife charged more clothes at TJ Maxx. I'm going to talk to her about it. Mike, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What are the potential outcomes? Is it worth it? If it's not worth it, do something different. Go back to question 1. Now what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What are the potential outcomes? Is it worth it? So that's I was thinking about that while you were talking. You want the kids to learn how to do that. You engage them in the process so that they can come up with, and that's not very wise for me to do, whatever it is. Oh, if we got time. She wants me to tell a story.
As an example of the child is focused on your behavior and not their own.
Right. I'll come back to it, I think. Let's go on so we can do it. It's not my story. Huh?
I said I could tell it, but I'm just
Okay. Understand the difference between self-esteem, feeling good about yourself, and true self-worth. The 3 pillars of self-worth are acceptance, belonging, and competence. I think it's really wrong for therapists and psychology today that are really pumping up having a good self-esteem, because it's not biblical. We are supposed to be humble, not proud. And so you have to, having a good, healthy sense of self, belonging to Christ, is what we're working on with our children. You want to raise that kind of an awareness. So the acceptance that God gives us, the acceptance that they have in their family, they belong to this family, your family of origin, and the church family. They belong to something far bigger than themselves, and that they're competent and able to make very healthy, wise, good decisions and grow. So that's what we're trying to do. That's going to give them that good sense of self that's hopefully grounded in humility. You don't want them to think they're awesome and the best and that's not what we want to pump our kids up with, because that's what the world says to do, for one, and it's causing all kinds of problems and really destructive in relationships with their marriages, with their work, with their friends. There's a lot of competition that's unhealthy competition. Okay, so let's take a look. Do you have any questions so far about that? Let's take a look at evaluating what type of a parent you might be. A permissive parent spares the rod. They're a slave to the child. They places the priority on the child and not your spouse or even other things that might be important in your life. That you're the most important thing. You're the only most important person in my life, and that cannot be the case. They rob the child of self-respect by doing things for him that the child can do for themselves. They provide the child with the Disney experience, making things as easy as possible. There's a lot of parents who do the homework for their kids. They answer for them. They do everything for them. I had a woman who had some twins who were going to college. They were identical twins who went to college. And she was in the office with me and talking about her husband, and she had mentioned something about the kids, and she goes, I've got to wake up my boys. And I go, what do you mean? Well, I have to wake them up. They've got class at 9 o'clock. And I have to make sure they're awake. And so she called them, and right in the middle of the appointment, that's how, and I go, why, how do the boys like? Oh, they like me to do it because they would never get up if I didn't do it. And they've got tests. They've got a test in chemistry this Thursday, and I've got to make sure that they are studying this Thursday. And this is far away. I mean, she is a permissive parent, taking on all kinds of responsibility for those kids. And can you imagine marrying one of those boys? When mama is, they're so used to having someone take care of them. They've got to find a mother to marry if they're going to. And I guarantee those mothers are going to have a little competition with one another. So you don't want to be a permissive child or parent. You want to make certain that you are handing out, letting them be responsible for themselves, not taking on that responsibility for them. The authoritarian parent is another kind of a parent from here. They make all the decisions for the child. They beat the child with a rod. They don't, when they're rebellious or when they're therefore become dependent on you. I know that I don't have to respond to anything until you really lose your temper and yell at me. So they may be a warner. They warn until they're mad, and then they follow through. So being angry is the boundary. It's not your word. You don't want to warn. That's also being a parent from here. So the drill sergeant can do that. They can be really loud. They use rewards or punishments to control the child's behavior. They see him or herself as better than the child. There's a pride issue that comes along with that, and they really, really, really want their kids to be like them, or they want their children to submit to them, so there's a lot of pride involved. They run the home with an iron fist and grant very little freedom for the child. So, does anybody have any questions about that? A lot of times what happens when you're doing that, You can be both permissive and authoritarian. You can be permissive for a long, long time. You know, don't move this chair. That's the expectation. And so the kid goes, I said, don't move this chair. Did you hear what I said? I don't want you to move the chair. Leave it alone. They're expensive. You know, we paid a lot of money for these chairs in this church, and it's not your church. I mean, it's God's church. You've got to take care of the things that are going on. Am I going to have to get up and off the couch and come over there and paddle your behind? Is that what it's going to take? You know, the parent just makes I'm coming. You know, so they keep going until you're really, really mad, and you come over and you pop them or throw them in the closet or whatever you do whenever you're crazy down here in this sandbox. So you want to make certain that you stay out of that area. An authoritative or responsible parent guides with the rod. And that's our goal. And this would be an authoritative, somebody who hands out expectations and also delivers consequences that are reasonable. One of the things a lot of parents do, they wait till they're so mad that they threaten, you know, you're not going on vacation with us this summer. You know, if you do that, you know, that punishes you. You don't want to ever hand out a consequence that's going to punish you. It needs to be something for them. An authoritative parent gives the child choices and formulates guidelines with them, provides the child with decision-making opportunities. They develop consistent, loving discipline. They hold the child accountable, which means they follow through with if they've done something wrong, they make certain that there's a consequence that they've threatened. You don't threaten, you just do. They let reality be the teacher, and they convey respect, self-worth, and love to the child. So you've got to remember we've got 1 Corinthians 13 that we're operating from up here. You want the Spirit of God to lead you. You want to be Spirit-filled and living out our life from here whenever we're doing our stuff. So it's really difficult, I think, to do when you're tired, right? It's really difficult to be this when you're exhausted and busy and you're hungry and you're got the twos, too anything. Too tired, busy, hungry, lonely, stressed, too many distractions, too many other kids. I don't know. You've got to make certain you do whatever's necessary to be up here and hand out the consequences later if you're too anything. A lot of times when children are under the age of 3, 4, you have to give a quick consequence most of the time because they can't remember what they're getting in trouble for. But most of the time you can say you will have a consequence when we get home for throwing that temper tantrum in the grocery store because you didn't get your animal crackers. So when you get home, you need to sit right here in the chair and think about what you did at the grocery store. You'll sit there for a minute for every age they are, for a while. And then whenever they're old enough to write sentences, they can write sentences. I'm not a huge fan of hitting. I think it's important if there's anything else you can do, try to do that. Timeouts work great, and the secret is you just do it immediately. For the young children, do it immediately. If they take off running, you have to make certain that you're not too tired to chase them down. So they might run. You just take your time, walk, and pull them right back here and sit in the chair. If they get up and run again, you go get them again. They have to eventually know that every single time I run, we're going to do this. And the calmer you can be, the more powerful you will be when they do that. Don't get angry. You get angry and show it on your face, you're going to end up in here with them. And they will look at your behavior, not theirs. No, you're sitting down. So the more calm you can be, the more powerful you can be. Don't give away your power to them. Okay. Any questions about the authoritative or responsible parent? Does that make sense? You guys are quiet today. Tired, hungry, grouchy, stressed, busy. Then you're going home. Let's take a look at an intimidated parent, and that would be somebody who's operating from down here in this area. An intimidated parent needs their child's approval. They fear the child getting mad at them. I don't want you to be mad at me. Mom loves you or Dad loves you. You're focusing on yourself instead of on them. Finishes commands with okay. I want you to go clean your room, okay? You're giving them an option. I go, no, I'm not going to clean my room right now. You give them an option, and then you get upset because you gave them a choice. You don't give them a choice if that's not what you want to do. So don't end the sentence with the okay. They argue with the kids. They become exasperated from nagging. Distract and offer treats to the children. Both of those things are just, you're avoiding doing your job. They try to gain approval from the children instead of handing out consequences. They're over-affectionate after discipline is given. I'm talking about over-affection. I'm not talking about, it's okay, I still love you and everything. You still need to sit there and think about what you did. And then we can play, catch after a while. Do something a little bit later. They give treats after discipline because they feel bad or guilty that they've gotten so mad. Because there's a lot of conviction that comes down here when you have been a big child. You feel really guilty and bad, so you want to hand out something from here, this permissive kind of a way of trying to get them to like you again or feel better because you feel bad. That's going to be wrong. Even if you mess up, you come up here and go, I messed up, but you're not getting no treat. They allow children to freely express their opinions, complaints, and criticisms regarding family decisions. I think there are many things that aren't a part of the kids that it's not their job to decide whether or not you get to move, or whether or not Dad comes to the game or not, or you don't give them those kind of responsibilities at all ever. It's not their job. You're going to have failure if you're repeating instructions and making threats. This trains them to treat repeated instructions as warnings and to respond only to harshness. It also communicates that you don't think they're smart and capable enough to obey the first time. It's one of the things when you entrust them to be wise or to make a good decision, they will start making good decisions. But if you think they're stupid, they're going to get the message, you think I'm stupid. Bribing for obedience, allowing excuses, tricking or manipulating, and distracting. So learn to respond rather than to react to them. Let reality be the teacher. B doesn't happen until A is completed. Can I go to my friend's house? When your room is all finished, you can go to your friend's house. When your room is clean, you can do that. Chuck Swindoll, I heard him talk at a conference one time that Dan and I went to. And he was asked, if there's anything you would do different in your parenting, what would it be? Is there anything you would do different? And immediately they said, I would have said no a lot less. And that kind of put everybody on their heels and said, rather than saying, can I go to my friend's house? No, you haven't cleaned your room. Can I have a treat? No, you haven't done your homework yet, and I told you treats are coming after the homework. Instead, you want to say, can I go to my friend's house? Yes, you can go to your friend's house as soon as your room is all clean. I'll come and check it. You come and get me. I'll look at it, and then you can go. It's far less breeding of rebellion. To use a positive motivator, you're still putting the guidelines in. It's kind of a trick, but it still works really, really good. It helps them be empowered too, and it motivates them to do what they want to do. Can I have some screen time? You may have your screen time on Saturday during this hour. That's when we had it. So as long as all of your homework's done, yes, you can have your hour of screen time. So you want to try to figure out how to frame things to where they've got a reward. 10 minutes? Okay. Say it once, turn your back, and then walk away. You mean business whenever you do that. This is what I want you to do. Say it once, turn your back, and walk away. If you continue to warn, it's going to cause problems. And again, it breeds dependency. So you want them to have as much self-esteem and responsibility as possible. Turn around. Don't let them argue with you. Just turn around. If the rule is, or the expectation is this, whatever this is, turn around and walk away. There was a time, I don't need to go there. There's a lot of times like, this is my final decision. I've heard them. Whatever they wanted, they requested something. Somebody did. It wasn't Nicole. But they requested something, and I said, okay, this is what I heard you say. You feel like you should be able to spend the night with your girlfriend, and you said that her parents are going to be there, and blah, 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 blah. There are all these things. She told me this. I go, did I hear it all correctly? Yes, you got it all. And I want to make sure that I heard it all and that she knows I heard it all. And I go, okay, the answer is no, because I don't know those parents. No. So I'm sorry you're disappointed, but the answer is no. And then she wanted to argue again. I go, the next time I hear about this is going to be on a note that you have written out so that you can clarify more, and just slide it underneath my bedroom door. And then we'll talk about it again. So I wanted to go the extra mile to make certain that she was trying to communicate with me what she wanted to do. So you want to make certain your kid is heard. You don't want to frustrate them by arguing with them. It's just, I want to hear all the way through, repeat back what they say so they feel heard, because that's an adult thing. We hear what the other person has to say, including our children, and then you follow through. Okay. Tips to regaining authority and earning your child's respect. Keep your objective in mind, subjection of their will. You want them to be able to be obedient to their authority. That's you. You want to require quick obedience and teach your children to obey without being told why. I've given you a list of things here, the tips for teaching children to assume responsibility for themselves. You can read that. It's there. And on the last sheet, these are some ways that kids avoid personal responsibilities. Just keep your eye on those sorts of things. You want them to handle responsibilities, not avoid responsibility. And so just you got to be on your game. Parenting is not for lazy people. Do not forget that. You can't be too tired. You've got to do your job. And if you start young, the younger you are when you start with this clear model of parenting, it's going to be far easier down the road because they've learned personal responsibility and they've learned to respect you. Nicole was asking me about the cop story, and I used the illustration of you being pulled over by a cop for going 90 miles an hour in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. The cop gets out of the car and says, "What in the heck is wrong with you? You some kind of an idiot? You know what, you ought to be thrown in jail. I ought to throw you in the back seat right now and take you straight down to jail. What is wrong with you? Oh, just sit there and look at me like you're stupid. Think this is funny? It's not funny. People can die. And I don't want any dead babies on my freeway. This is my freeway. Man, it is a pleasure writing this ticket. I hope you can test it too and come home from your vacation. I'll come home from my vacation to make certain that I meet you in that courtroom. Because you're wrong, I'm right, and you will pay. Writes a ticket, throws it in there. You disgust me. He gets his car, and he follows you all the way to work. You're going to go in there and work and tell everybody what? You would not believe how I was treated. This cop was so disrespectful to me. I can't, you're focusing on his behavior, not yours. The goal of all discipline is to help a kid look at their behavior, not yours. So he was here and here. And they're just going, look what happened. You can also have another cop that pulls you over for going 90 miles an hour. May I see your driver's license again? I saw you yesterday going this fast, and we talked about it. But you can't go 90 miles an hour on the freeway right here. It's dangerous. I'm going to let you get away with a warning today, again, but make certain that you drive the speed limit. That's the rule here. I want you to you need to understand, when I was young, I had to drive the speed limit all the time. My father was in the car, and he would make certain that he told me, and he taught me how important it is that I obey the rules. Rules are important. I'm a Christian man, and God even expects us to have some rules. And he has a really nice long lecture. In the meantime, you're already late for work, and that's why you were speeding. Hurry up. Yeah, just give me the warning. And so he gets away with it. So what's going to happen tomorrow if he's late? He's going to speed again. Because there is no consequence. Or finally he blows up like the last one. Again, you're not looking at your behavior thinking, I got away with that one. He's so nice. He's a nice guy. Again, you're focused on his behavior. And then there's when you're going real fast and another guy pulls you over, a different cop, and he says, may I see your driver's license and your registration, please? I'm going to have to cite you for going 95 in a 65-mile-an-hour zone. Here you go. I suggest you do whatever it takes so that you can drive the speed limit, because anytime I see you going fast, I'm going to pull you over and give you a ticket. He gets back in his car, and you're thinking, what? I need to watch my mirror better. or I need to slow down. You want them looking at their behavior. The goal of all discipline is to have them look at their behavior, not yours. So keep that in mind with the kids. Work real hard to pray that this is who you are and this is who you aren't. Okay?